Issei Haido is a stupid, lonely loser who is also a first-class pervert from Kuo Academy. Bro can't even manage to get a girlfriend but has Disney fairy tale dreams of being a harem king. Everything changes when he is killed by a fallen angel and ends up revived to serve a bunch of extremely hot, juicy, and endowed devil family. Unlike you, these monkeys are surrounded by ladies, and yes, like you, they can't land a single girlfriend of their own. Issei Matsuda, Suda for short, and Motohama, Toha for short. They start off this anime wishing they could feel the fleshiness of the frontal assets of a pretty girl. They lament heavily on how they thought the girl-to-boy ratio had an overwhelming difference, with the number of girls towering over the number of guys, like you and the junction where you finally stop watching anime. It's far. Despite this difference, instead of ladies swarming them, they treat the guys like flies. Well, maybe just these guys, because another guy passed by just now, and he's living the dream of these losers in broad daylight. His name is Kiba, and well, let's just say, not everyone is on good terms with him, but the ladies are sure swarming him. The three of them put on their peeping Tom behavior, but the holes were not enough for all three. Issei struggled to peek, and in doing so, they made a noise, and the ladies realized their innocence was being devoured by some lowlifes. By the time the ladies showed up, it was only Issei, who didn't get a chance to peep, who was caught and given the beating of his life. Later on, the guys rendezvoused at their secret meeting point, and as they discussed, Issei noticed a redhead at the window of the building they were beside. She took one good look at their ugly faces, decided that Issei was the prettiest of them all, and made a move on him. When she got back inside, I'm already grinning hard because I know that from the looks of the sheer size, shape, and perkiness of the redhead and the second girl who's standing beside her, this series is full of weeb armor. And hey, aren't we here to feed our eyes? The redhead gets up and begins to undress, and blood of Jesus. Take a look at those opai. Y'all should thank me for going through the stress of making frontal assets into a word YT can allow. Let's try this. One fateful evening, a sweet-looking girl blocked the ugly cow Issei and told him that she'd like to go out with him. Unbeknownst to him, she was going to be his undoing. The next day, with shoulders as high as Mount Everest, he introduced her to his friends, who were mortified by his betrayal. Soon after, they go on a date, and at the end of the day, she tells him to do one thing: go and meet his maker. His ears could not believe what she said. She repeated, and this time I heard, Home ahewa moshin da heru, and the bro was like, Nani? She puts a spear through him, and oh yeah, I forgot. Earlier when he arrived at the venue, he was given a coupon that said they'd grant his any wish, and before she stabbed him, she transformed into a being with vampire-like wings. During her transformation, the Virgin had enough time to ogle her, and on top of that, Issei was making his last wish about wanting to die in the arms of the redhead. Just then, a magic circle showed up, and the redhead appeared and said that from now on, he'll serve her. Issei wakes up the next morning with pains all over his body and finds out his friends have no memory of the girlfriend he introduced to them. They teased him and later went to the house to watch, in quotes, "bralicious films." Issei found out that even in the dark, he could see as bright as day. He decided to step out, and when he got to the fountain, the girl who killed him attacked him again. He's attacked again by a fallen angel who stabs him with a holy sword that acts like a wolfbane. Just when the fallen angel was about to end him, Issei cried out for help, and the redhead and her girls came around and saved him. He wakes up again with more pains, and this time he wakes up without any clothing. And the redhead was on the bed too, in her full glory. The dumb virgin, who might not be a virgin anymore, jumped out of bed instead of saying the famous Chris Tucker and Ice Cube line, "Damn!" Rias the redhead wakes up smiling and explains to him that she is a devil and she is his master, as he was reincarnated by her. When Issei woke up to a surprise that even his wildest dreams couldn't have prepared him for, seeing Rias snuggled up beside him, you'd think a certified virgin like Issei, who's been daydreaming about girls since the day he stepped his foot on the school soil, would be doing backflips of joy. But nah, bro was frozen like an ice statue and staring like a deer caught in headlights. His brain is doing everything to comprehend the sheer size of the bee rest on her, because damn, brother! Look at those French curves she's blessed with. Things take a turn for the best when his mom casually strolls into the room. She announced her entry all the way from the staircase, and as he rallied around the room to cover her, he utterly failed at doing that. When his mom opened the door, what did she find? her son in bed with a girl in her full glory, but his mom gives a rather shocking reaction. Rias, meanwhile, casually had dropped the bomb that she's a devil, was just there like nothing was happening. She tells him one of the sweetest things a weeb like you and I can ever be told, that he can look at her B-rest whenever and however he likes. Later, Issei's school day drags on, but not as usual. It did not take long before the plot twist slapped his friends in the face. After digesting the slap, they met up with him in the hallway and returned the plot twist slap of being with Rias, with a sweet savoring punch to the face. Q. The billions of questions he has to answer. A guy named Kiba, who's basically the human embodiment of every girl's dream boyfriend in any shoujo anime, the only guy who actually gets the girls in this anime, and the enemy of all the other boys in this anime. He shows up. He's here to escort Issei to the occult research club. Issei has just upgraded from pervy high schooler to pervy high schooler in a mysterious occult club. You see, when I told my friends that only devils could pull every girl they came across, they thought I was lying. Kiba is here to prove me right. The room is filled with characters that look like they stepped out of a supernatural battle series. There's Akeno, whose vibe screams sweet, but will end you in a second. She's got wonderful milk jugs hanging off her like a milk factory. There's Kaneko, the small stoic girl who'd probably give you a deadpan look even if a meteor crashed into the room. Rias comes out of the shower and immediately fills his cup with the whole angels versus devils versus fallen angels situation. It's basically just a clash of titans with humans as the people who just happen to live on Earth, while the supernaturals do their thing without human knowledge. And just like that, Issei's ex-girlfriend Yuma, yeah, the one who turned into a black-winged horror, killed him, and she owns the first ever B-rest he ever saw in real life, is confirmed to be a fallen angel. Talk about dating gone wrong. As if things weren't crazy enough, Issei gets his first devil task, handing out pamphlets. After doing his best salesman impression, he then takes one of Koneko's clients, and the client wanted Koneko but had to settle for the low-life demon that was sent his way, and they end of talking about Drago M Super. And no, I didn't spell it wrong. I know you the anime DBS, but here, it's Drago M Super, and the famous Kamehameha is called Dragon Wave, and his name is Gonsoku. But before he can even breathe a sigh of relief, he's ambushed by Kalawana, yet another fallen angel, who clearly missed the memo that Issei's life is already chaotic enough. Luckily, Issei taps into his sacred gear, unlocking some hidden power that lets him fend her off. The next day in school, he's stopped by some damn big behind that's stuck in something. You know those, stepbrother. I'm stuck. Apparently the big bunda he ran into was that of a nun, and whatever he did with her bunda is none of your business. Do you want to know how hard he hit her with his nunchucks? He helps the nun, her name is Asian, dusting off her robe like a pro. She tells him she's lost, and being the kind of guy who's a sucker for damsels in distress and anything in a skirt, he agrees to take her back to the church. But let's be real here. If you're walking with a cute girl, things are bound to go, let's say sideways. Along the way, they bump into a kid bawling his eyes out over a bruised knee. Asia, being all saintly, goes full healer mode and fixes the kid up in no time. Issei watches this go down and suddenly gets a weird, queasy feeling, like he just ate 10 bowls of ramen in record time. As they near the church, the nausea ramps up. Issei's face turns green like he's about to puke. When they finally arrive near the church, Issei taps out, since he can't go any further. Later he grills Rias about why he felt like he was going to lose his lunch at the church. Rias, in her typical queenly fashion, explains that the church is enemy territory. She spills the beans, telling him Asia is basically hanging out with the enemy. Rias advises him to stay away from her if he wants to keep his head on straight. Fast forward to Rias and the gang taking Issei on a field trip, and yeah, it's the fun fight type. This one involves hunting down a rogue devil who went AWOL and sent its master into the depths of the endless abyss of debt. While they're on the job, Rias takes a moment to explain how everyone's chess rankings work. Issei, as usual, was just a pawn. Later, Issei gets another mission. This time, it's to seal a contract. When no one answers the door, Issei does what any sane person wouldn't. He just walks right in. There's a dead body waiting to greet him. Enter Freed, an unhinged exorcist who clearly needs a new hobby as he brags about eliminating the guy and working for fallen angels, like it's something to put on his resume. He spots Issei, figures out he's a devil, and decides to play whack-a-mole with him using a gun and a light sword. Issei's not having the best day, especially after getting shot in the leg. Just when things are about to get really ugly, Asia pops into play. She's putting up a barrier and then, just to be extra extra. He reveals to Asia that Issei's a devil. Freed makes a move to finish Issei off, but Asia rushes in to play hero. Unfortunately, Freed isn't impressed, and he easily shoves her aside like a pile of garbage. He pins her to a wall. This causes Issei's protective instincts to kick in. Freed asked him to pay for Freed plus to watch everything live and direct. But despite being in serious pain, Issei launches a punch right into Freed's face, knocking him back. When it looks like Freed's about to turn Issei into mincemeat, the Occult Research Club shows up. They save Issei's ass. Issei tries to save Asia, but the teleportation circle only works for members of the Gremory clan. Issei struggles to break free from Kaneko's grip as he watches Asia get left behind, feeling like he just failed his very own Save the Girl side quest. Issei's recovery from the last battle wasn't exactly a relaxing vacation. Full body hugs without clothes and 100% spa care, just so he can be healed. He's determined to get stronger, especially since Asia's still in danger. Rias, being the overprotective president she is, keeps scolding him for poking his nose into enemy territory. He knows what he wants, and what he wants is to rescue Asia. When a bro feels weak, you know what a bro is going to wake up one day and do? He'll decide it's time for some serious muscle building. So, naturally, he goes to the park to work on his chin-ups. You can just imagine him trying to look all tough while struggling to get through 10 reps. But Fate has a funny way of interrupting training montages because who should show up but Asia? Instead of working out, they end up going on a date. I'd be having PTSD by now because the last time, the virgin didn't just die once, he died twice. It plunged him into this abyss of milk jugs. But oh well, a win is a win. However, this time it's an actual date. Issei's life is like an accidental harem anime at this point, and we don't even realize it. The date is going well, though she kept muttering that it was the last time he'll ever see her. Just when he got up, he announced that he'll be her friend after hearing her sad, lonely life story. Enter Raynar, the fallen angel, who had previously tricked Issei by pretending to be Yuma. Yeah, she's back, and she's not interested in a peaceful reunion. She picks a fight with Issei, and well, let's just say it doesn't end well for him. Issei might have the heart of a hero, but his fighting skills are still way worse than my cooking skills. Raynar hands him a pretty solid beatdown, like when Toph beat down the boulder, all while Issei's trying his best to protect Asia. It's like watching Deku go up against All Might. Seeing Issei battered and bruised, Asia pulls a classic noble sacrifice move and offers to go with Raynar in exchange for Issei's safety. Raynar, probably amused at how easy this all turned out, agrees and whisks Asia away, leaving Issei in a crumpled heap of regret. We know this virgin is not going to let the girl, who he might actually break his virginity, slip out of his hands that easily. Issei limps back to the club room, hoping to get some help. But to his surprise, Rias actually agrees to help this time. She explains that, as a pawn, Issei can rank up to other pieces in their devil chess game, which sounds cool until you realize he's still a total newbie at this devil stuff. Even Sakura eventually became useful, so there's hope for Issei, too. Armed with a new plan, Issei teams up with Kiba and Kaneko to storm the church and save Asia, while Rias and Akeno handle the trio of fallen angels guarding the place. It's like a high-stakes episode of Attack on Titan, but with less screaming about freedom and more epic devil powers. Boy, was there a lot of screaming in AOTA as they approach. Freed shows up again, clearly having not learned his lesson from their last encounter. This time, however, Issei ranks up to Rook, and with Kaneko's help, they defeat Freed with one sweet punch from our ugly moose, Issei. Though he manages to escape like the sneaky villain he is, it's a victory for Team Issei. Realizing that his date with Asia had taken the worst possible turn. It's like the sad ending of a Full Metal Alchemist episode, except now he's more determined than ever to set things right. I'm just chilling because of his outburst. Raynar, in full villain mode, extracts Asia's sacred gear like she's downloading an app and installs it herself. Okay, now, that was very funny. While that's happening, Issei, Kiba, and Kaneko are busy fighting through a bunch of rogue exorcists like they're playing the most intense level of Resident Evil. Somehow, between all the chaos, Issei manages to reach Asia, and he gets a hold of her just as Raynar releases her from the cross. He carries her down the stairs like he's in the final scene of a tragic romance movie, all while Kiba and Kaneko hold off the exorcists like they're playing defense in a football game. But here's the thing, without her sacred gear, Asia's life starts fading fast. Issei, who's beyond head over heels, struck by love, begs her to hang on, promising to stay by her side, but it's clear she's not going to make it. In her final moments, Asia thanks Issei for being her first friend. Don't get me started on how this kind of sad moment can happen 5 times in one filler episode of Naruto. Of course, just when things couldn't get worse, Reiner shows up again. She's got Asia's sacred gear, and she's rubbing it in his face by healing her own injuries. Disgusted, but mostly vexed and sore displeasure by Reiner's total lack of empathy and how she treated Asia's life like a joke, Issei's temper flares up like the flames of hell. Anyways, he's a devil. He challenges Reiner to a fight, even though it looks like he's way out of his league. Meanwhile, outside the church, Rias and Aquino are still handling the trio of fallen angels. Rias gets even angrier when someone insults one of her servants and promptly disposes of them. If anyone doubted that Rias is the queen of cool rage, this scene shuts them up. Back inside, Issei's attempt to fight Reiner goes about as well as expected, which is to say, it's a disaster. Reiner, with her new superpowered self, easily smacks him around and impales his thighs with light spears. Issei's down, but not out. He remembers Rias's advice, begging for the strength to defeat Reiner. Suddenly, his sacred gear kicks into action for the first time, boosting his power way beyond Reiner's. Issei lands a punch right on Reiner's face, knocking her out in one blow. That's some One Punch Man level stuff right there. But when will they give me a season 3 of OPM? Damn. After the battle, Rias and the gang show up to congratulate Issei on his first real win. Koneko drags the defeated Reiner back inside, and Rias notices something about Issei's sacred gear. Turns out Issei's gear isn't the twice critical blah 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 like they thought, but the boosted gear, one of the 13 Longinus. It's packing the spirit of the Red Dragon Emperor. Realizing she's way out of her depth, Reiner shapeshifts back into her Yuma form, begging Issei for mercy. But Issei is not falling for that sob story again. Instead of finishing her off himself, he calmly turns his back and gets Rias to handle it. I'm proud of bro. I'm proud. That was supposed to sound cool. After confirming Reiner's death, Issei looks pretty down. After all, his first girlfriend just died. But then Rias pulls out a surprise twist. She revives Asia as a devil using the bishop piece from her evil pieces set, and even restores Asia's sacred gear. Issei's mood does a 180, and he welcomes Asia back with a big smile. The next day at the Occult Research Club, Issei questions Rias about whether there are 7 more pawns. But Rias reveals she used all her pieces to revive him. She tells him to become the ultimate pawn, giving him a little kiss on the forehead and shoving half his face down her enormous, humongous milk jugs until Asia shows up. As they celebrate their newest member, a mysterious figure is shown spying on them through a red bird outside the window. Not you typical cliffhanger. So, things are getting spicy in the Occult Research Club, and Asia has officially upgraded her living arrangements. She's been hanging out with the club for a while, but now, she's decided it's time to move in with the Hyudu crew. She's making sure she's close to Issei, like, really close. And she's got nowhere else to go. Meanwhile, Rias has this bright idea to throw Issei into some basic training, mostly to keep him from running out of breath every time he has to walk upstairs or throw a punch or two. Have I ever mentioned the weird alarm tone this boy uses? It's weird, but can somebody tell me where to get one? Comments, please. After sweating it out in training, Asia has decided to crash at his place, all because she wants to be with him and she's transferring to his class. Anyway, Asia's charm works wonders, and soon enough she's the most popular girl in Icy's class. Everyone's loving her sweet, innocent vibe. I've actually heard people say they prefer their girl, slim, small, petite, looking innocent, and I know it's you. Go get yourself a thick Latina. Speaking of crazy, Issei's trying to step up his game. He's distributing pamphlets like a pro, and I guess I also didn't mention that he is at the top of his flyer sharing game, because he wants to grow enough to have him a servant that he can do all sorts of wild things to, or with. He gets another weirdo, Miltan, the muscular man, who's built like a tank, but dreams of being a magic girl. Later, during PE, Issei finds himself moping in the sick room because, yet again, no one wants to sign a contract with him when he wakes up to find Rias, naked, and casually snoozing right next to him. He tries to get him a wholesome feel of her milk factory, but she wakes up, and they strike a deal that if he can land a contract, he can have a wonderful time with her milk jugs. At this point, you'd think Issei is living in some harem anime, like High School DxD. Oh wait, this is High School DxD. So, Issei's new client is a foreign girl named Susan. She's obsessed with samurais. She's always decked out in full samurai armor. She wants help getting her notes back from university. And oh yeah, she needs assistance with her love confession. Susan writes a love letter, and surprisingly, it works. She confesses her feelings to a guy named Hori, who is walking around in medieval knight armor. I have never seen a match so perfect in my entire life. Back at the Occult Research Club, Boy was ready to cash in that Jug Factory field deal he had. But he had only 5 seconds, and the monkey wasted it, instead of jumping right in there the moment she said yes. So it's finally time for Issei and Asia to level up. Rias decides they've done enough hustling and now deserve their own familiars. As Rias is about to reveal her own familiar, the student council busts in, looking all official, and it turns out the president of the council, Sona, isn't just some overachieving schoolgirl. No, she's a high-class devil from the prestigious Citri clan. Rias introduces her crew to Sona's crew, and then the real showdown begins between Issei and Saji. These two knuckleheads instantly start a rivalry, like Naruto and Sasuke, but way less cool. Saji brags that Sona already gave him the green light to get a familiar. Now both Rias and Sona are in a bind, because apparently, only one group can snag a familiar at a time. As if things weren't already messy enough, the queens from both sides decide the best way to settle this is a tennis match. What? I was executing a Goku versus Vegeta level battle for some serious power upgrades for ISA. Anyway, the tennis match ends in a tie. The teams regroup, scratching their heads, wondering what to do next. Rias and Aquino have an epiphany. Dodgeball. Can't someone whisper into their ears about an epic battle? The dodgeball match kicks off, and it's pure chaos. Demonic powers are flying everywhere, and they somehow manage to turn a regular schoolyard game into a scene out of Dragon Ball Z. The Occult Research Club wins, but not without turning the entire gym into a smoking crater. After that wild spectacle, the gang heads to the familiar forest, where they meet Satuji, the familiar master. He looks like a character from One Piece. As they venture through the forest, they run into an Undine, which Issei is super excited about. The Undines are not the graceful, ethereal beings he imagined. They're more like buff old ladies in pink togas. The disappointment on Issei's face is not as priceless as the look of disgust on my face right now. They soon find a baby sprite dragon, but just as he's about to make his move, a slime shows up. And not just any slime. This slime dissolves clothes, which naturally gets Issei's undivided attention. I heard of this slime before, can't just pinpoint the anime it was used in, though Rias and the rest of the group obliterate the slime in disgust. In a final twist, the sprite dragon shocks everyone, literally, by taking a liking to Asia. She makes it her familiar and names it Rase, while Issei's left sulking, dreaming of what could have been. Issei, our favorite clueless perv, finds himself daydreaming about marrying Rias. This dreamy thought doesn't just warm his heart though, it also gets him connected to his little Johnny, Nig gun. Later, at school, Issei, Suda, and Toha decide it's time for their daily dose of humiliation. They sneak into the girls' changing room to spy on the kendo club. You'd think they'd learn by now, but nope, they're caught red-handed, and Kaneko, being the pint-sized powerhouse she is, gives them a free trip to Pain City. Imagine Koneko as a fusion of Levi from Attack on Titan and Nami from One Piece. You know, small but terrifying. Back at the club room, things are calmer. Asia's healing Issei's injuries, because well, someone has to after Kaneko's beatdown. Meanwhile, Rias casually mentions that she doesn't mind showing her body to Issei. Yeah, nothing weird about that at all, and I'm beginning to feel she's got the hots for this useless boy. After Issei and the gang leave, Rias and Aquino have a heart-to-heart. Aquino worries that she's falling for him, but Rias brushes it off. Just when things seem peaceful, a mysterious magic circle pops up in the room. Fast forward to Issei's room at night. Suddenly Rias appears out of thin air and without warning blurts out that she wants Issei to take her virginity. Wait, hold up. Wait a minute. Before Issei and you can even process what's happening, because let's be real, two of you, your brains are slower than a Shikamaru strategy session. Another character interrupts. This mysterious newcomer is Grafia, and she's here to escort Rias away. Issei's left standing there, more confused than Naruto trying to understand math. The next day, things take a sharp turn. Issei meets Riser, another high-class devil, and Ria's so-called fiancé. I know you just gasped, too. I gasped so hard I almost swallowed a fly. But yeah, fiancé. As expected, Rias isn't thrilled about this arrangement, and she's not the type to go along with someone just because their family says so. The argument between Rias and Riser quickly heats up like an episode of Dragon Ball Z Enter Graphy again, playing the mediator like she's some sort of referee for supernatural squabbles. She suggests that instead of a wedding, Rias and Riser settle things with a rating game, which is basically a fancy devil version of a duel. After the terms are agreed upon, Riser introduces his all-girls peerage, and Issei's face goes from green with envy to full-blown admiration. But his admiration quickly turns into rage when Riser starts flirting with his queen, Yuba Luna, right in front of Rias. Even Issei, the king of pervs, has more tact than that. Fueled by jealousy, hatred, and envy, Issei challenges Riser to a fight. It doesn't go well. Riser's pawn, Mira, who's supposedly the weakest of the bunch, wipes the floor? Bro. She tainted the whole series with his ass. It's like when Rock Lee took off his weights and absolutely crushed Gaara. Except in this case, Issei didn't have any secret techniques up his sleeve. Riser leaves with a smug grin, and Rias is left to accept the terms for the upcoming rating game. So, it's crunch time for the Occult Research Club. In just 10 days, they'll face Riser Fenix and his overconfident crew in a rating game. Naturally, Rias isn't taking any chances, so she drags the whole squad to some remote mountain cottage that even Google Maps would break a sweat trying to find. It's time for hardcore training, and everyone's pumped. First up, Issei trains with Kiba in sword fighting. Well, trains is a strong word. Kiba is basically slicing through the air like he's starring in Demon Slayer, while Issei is more like the guy in the background flailing around, hoping not to stab himself. Then, there's Akino, who's all about magic. She's out here doing fairy tale level spells, and Issei's best contribution is looking dazed while trying not to set himself on fire. As for Kaneko, she's in charge of close combat, and let's just say Issei versus Kaneko is like pitting a kitten against a full-fledged grizzly bear. It's not pretty, but here's the plot twist. Asia, sweet little Asia, is actually getting the hang of magic. Well, Issei's strength, brace yourselves, comes in the kitchen. Yup, our boy can't swing a sword to save his life, but when it comes to peeling potatoes with magic, oh, he's a master. The secret is that he pictures a Kano in her full glory form, and voila. The potatoes are flying out of their skins like they've got somewhere important to be. As he's peeling veggies like the world's weirdest wizard, Issei gets this light bulb moment. He recalls the same feeling he had when he first activated his sacred gear during that fight with Kalawarner. While everyone else is perfecting their battle strategies, Issei is developing a new move. Meanwhile, Graphia, ever the serious maid, is off having a chat with Surzex. The big topic is Rias accepting the rating game challenge. Fast forward to nighttime. Issei, like a typical anime protagonist, sneaks out to practice his new move, thinking no one will notice. He pulls Asia into it by borrowing her dress. She wonders what he wants to do with her dress, hopefully not beating the crap out of his meat. But Asia catches him in the act as he is practicing his vegetable slicing skills on a dummy, and she gets caught in the blast. The next day, Rias decides it's time for a history lesson. She starts explaining the whole backstory of devils, angels, and fallen angels, and how all of that led to the creation of the rating games. Everyone listens intently, except for Issei, who's probably still daydreaming about peeling potatoes. Later that night, Issei has a heart-to-heart with Rias about Riser's abilities. She shares her reasons for rejecting her engagement, and Issei, in true My Hero Academia fashion, starts moping about how weak he is. She shoves him right into her milk factory to comfort him. I hope ladies are taking notes. Be rest is life. But the next morning, something miraculous happens. Issei has another sparring session with Kiba, and this time, he powers up his boosted gear enough to pull off a dragon shot, and he levels an entire mountainside. This moment marks Issei's first ever victory against Kiba, and it's a huge one. Not only does it boost his confidence, but it also means Rias's intense training sessions have finally worked. Let's hope they're ready for Riser, because with Issei's potato-peeling powered moves, he will get his behind mopped around when he faces off Riser. 1 hour before the big rating game, our boy Icy was mentally preparing in his room like a pro athlete before a championship match. Except this isn't football, it's supernatural chess with punches. He's all serious, probably muttering something about power-ups and how he better not mess this up. Enter Asia, looking for some emotional backup. she pops in, doing that classic concerned anime girl thing, her big eyes practically sparkling. Issei, being Issei, tries to keep cool. Just as the conversation starts getting real, his alarm clock rings out. Time to roll. They head over to the Occult Research Club, the place where all the magic happens. Literally. Upon arriving, the whole squad's there, putting on their best game faces, prepping for their showdown with Riser and his bunch of overpowered misfits. It's the final countdown. Before they can head out, Sona and her loyal sidekick Tsubaki, with a casual good luck look. They wave off like cool senpais while Rias thanks them, adding a hint of extra drama. Fast forward, and bam. The Gremory team's transported to this alternate dimension that looks like a replica of Kuo Academy. It's the perfect setting for this epic showdown. Before the game kicks off, Rias, acting like the boss she is, pulls everyone together for a strategy sesh. She's got Akeno, Yuto, and Kaneko running around, setting traps like they're in a battle royale, while she pulls Issei aside. Remember that little seal she slapped on him for being too weak? Yeah, she loosens that a bit, giving him a minor power-up. Issei's feeling pretty pumped and thinking to himself that maybe I won't die in the first round. After all the prep, Issei and Kaneko head over to the gym, and oh boy, waiting for them are 4 of Riser's lackeys. Shuelen, the powerhouse rook, and the 3 pawns, Mira, Ile, and Nell. Kaneko sizes up Shuelen, cracks her knuckles, and jumps into battle mode. She's ready to throw hands. Meanwhile, Issei's staring at the 3 pawns, knowing he's about to be outnumbered. 3 against 1? Not cool, but is it weird that I can't wait for them to beat the crap out of him even when I know plot armor won't let anything happen to him? The fight gets intense. Issei's struggling at first and probably thinking of pulling a Naruto and summoning some hidden strength. Then, boom. He activates his boosted gear and doubles his power. The pawns are caught off guard as Issei whips out his secret technique, Dress Break, which, well, let's just say it strips them of their clothes. Forget having a slime that devours clothes. Bro lost a slime and gained the ability to do exactly what the slime was going to be used for. The pawns are left completely defenseless, and Icy stands victorious. Blushing, but victorious. Meanwhile, Kaneko pulls off a sweet submission move on Weilan, taking her down like a boss. Together, they leave the gym as Akeno swoops in to drop a finishing blow, blowing the gymnasium to smithereens. Issei's still standing there, all proud, while Kaneko's filled with disgust. Maybe she's jealous that Issei won't look her way because she's got no milk jugs and nothing on her behind. It's bad enough that little Asia has something tangible going on in her milk factory. Over in the forest, Kiba's got his own situation going on, facing off against Riser's pawns. Shuria, Marion, and Byrant, who fall right into the traps Rias's team had set up. It's like a Pokemon trap, but way more lethal. But the plot thickens like my girl when I finally get her and feed her all the junk money can buy, and all this large chunk of meat. As Issei and Kaneko move forward, Kaneko's still fuming over Issei's antics with the dress break. She speeds ahead, not wanting to deal with his nonsense. But then bam! Out of nowhere, Riser's queen, Yubaluna, sneaks in with a surprise attack, knocking Kaneko out cold. Hayasei's left standing there, all wide-eyed, and WTF, is bro gonna do? Strip her? Issei was ready to throw hands with Yubaluna, all fired up to get revenge for Kaneko. But before he could make a move, Akeno stepped in with her usual calm and slightly scary smile. She tossed a look over her shoulder at him and left Issei standing there like a backup character in One Piece. So, with nothing to do, Issei went to team up with Yuto, while Akeno and Yubaluna started throwing lightning and explosions around like a high-stakes fireworks show. Meanwhile, Rias was furiously revising her battle plan like she was trying to cram for a final exam she hadn't studied for. Akeno's fight threw everything off, but she decided to go straight for Riser, the cocky Firebird dude who always acted like he owned the place. With that power, bro owns the series, but not for long. Naturally, Issei and Yuto were really not in confirmation with the plan, but Rias wasn't having it, and charged ahead, leaving the 2 guys to handle Riser's squad of baddies. Riser's team was a real mixed bag. His sister Ravel, who looked sweet, but was probably plotting everyone's demise. Carlamine, the sword-wielding knight who could probably slice through a tank. Isabella, the tank herself, Ceres, another knight who gave off major cool girl vibes, and the twin pawns Ni and Lee, who probably finished each other's sentences like they were in some kind of twin anime cliche. Yuto went up against Carlamine, while Issei found himself facing Isabella. Issei, never one to play fair, hit Isabella with his dress break move, which was both incredibly useful at embarrassing his opponent. With her movements disabled, Issei fired off his dragon shot, knocking Isabella out of the game. But just as he was feeling pretty proud of himself, he noticed Rias was getting seriously outmatched by Riser. Issei's hero complex kicked into overdrive and here come the Power Rangers. He knew he had to step up, so he let his boosted gear evolve, transforming it into the boosted gear gift. Then, like some kind of shonen anime protagonist, he transferred all that extra power over to Yuto. With his new power boost, Yuto went full sword, master mode, slicing through Riser's remaining team like they were butter. In one epic swing, Carlamine, Cirrus, Ni, and Lee were all wiped out, leaving only Ravel standing. But just when they thought they had this fight in the bag, Akeno got KO'd by Yubelina, and Yuto got blasted off the battlefield like he'd forgotten his plot armor at home. Issei, not one to listen to common sense or stop to use his devil brain for a minute, ran straight into enemy territory, ignoring Ravel's advice. He promoted himself to queen and rushed to the rooftop, hoping to help Rias and Asia. But when he got there, he realized his body had had enough of the power boost and was shutting down like a faulty laptop having Windows issues. Riser is now smelling victory as he was pummeling Issei into the ground, leaving our hero on the verge of death, and in a twist that could make any anime fan shout, "No!" Rias, fearing for Issei's life, threw in the towel. Just like that, Riser won, leaving everyone wondering what was next for Team Rias. Let's end this, shall we? So imagine waking up after a tough day, only to realize you passed out on your bed, completely beat. That's exactly what happens to Issei after his wild battle in the raiding game against Riser and his gang. Our boy Issei feels like, no, he is the biggest loser ever, blaming himself for Rias having to step down. He thinks to himself that it's all my fault. And they lost because he's such a weakling. You can almost hear him playing some sad anime music in his head. Just as he's wallowing in his self-pity, Grafia, who works for the big boss Surzex, shows up. You know it's serious when someone like Grafia turns up at your house. She hands him a magic circle that acts like a VIP pass to the engagement party of the century, the Gremory Phoenix Forced Wedding. It's basically the underworld version of a royal wedding. Issei wastes no time and teleports right to the party. And in true Issei fashion, he crashes it like the main man he is. As you'd expect, everyone's like, oh no, he didn't. But Surzex steps in to suggest a more civilized way to handle things. A one-on-one brawl between Issei and Riser. And what's on the line? Oh, nothing serious, just Rias's engagement. But here's the kicker. Issei's been cooking up a secret plan. Bro came here with more cheat codes than you and I have ever used in GTA. He's traded his left arm to the dragon that's chilling inside him for a ridiculous power boost. But as usual, there's a catch. He's only got 10 seconds to use that power. So it's basically a high-stakes anime speedrun. I just went through a brain rack and I got it for you. The fight starts, and Issei's going all out. He's throwing punches that could shake the heavens. Riser's looking a bit shaken, but here's the thing. Riser is a phoenix. This guy has more lives than an isekai protagonist, and Issei's time is ticking fast. 10 seconds are up, and Issei is out of juice. But plot twist, even without that power, Issei's got one last trick up his sleeve. Holy objects he snagged from Asia. I told you he came with more cheats than your lazy behind used in GTA. He hurls them at Riser, and boom! Riser's in agony, like a vampire who just saw daylight. Issei wins the fight with a blow graced by the holy water and the rosary. If this were Fire Force, Aaliyah would be saying the prayer, and when this blow lands, she'd say, Latom, and Rias is free from the engagement. As they ride away on Griffin, Rias plants a big ol' kiss on Issei while they're flying on the Griffin. This foolish boy is willing to give everything to save his master. But we all know this is just the beginning. Issei once again wakes up to one of my very own fantasies, which is to wake up to a face full of melons. The president was in her full glory and wrapped her legs and arms around him. The lucky cow wanted to play smart and have a good feel of her melons, but then she woke up. He asked her why she's blessing him this early morning, and she said she wanted to use him as a human pillow. There, guys, is where my heart dropped. She gets on top of him and tells him to do whatever he wants with her. But just before they could start clapping, Asia came in and took off her clothes. Next thing we see is the whole residence of the house on the dining table. So we don't know if they devoured his morning wood and clapped the seeds out of him. Or did they? That's true. I forgot to do a little recap of how we got here. Issei was the bottom of the food chain, the lowest of the low. His life made mine a little interesting until one day, the monkey died simping for a woman and was brought back to life. His life immediately skyrocketed, and now mine is nothing but filth next to his. He traveled to the other world, saved the president from an arranged marriage, and here we are, living and clapping to the glory of the Lord. Now that you're up to date, let's get back to it. The president wants to hold their usuals meetings at Issei's house because their place is getting cleaned up. Issei gets to school and was grinning as he was imagining all the positions. He could put both the president and Asia and clap them till their legs shake like a vibrator. His mind clapping session was interrupted when his two bottom feeder friends, Suda and Toha, who have been hearing rumors that he's picking up chicks like Chris Brown and clapping them like he's some celebrity. Issei had to go check his left hand with Akino, and within 2 seconds, it went from cleansing to something in the lines of sucking his Excalibur. She said she liked him. She wore a dress that was so transparent, you could see my Excalibur rising and my urge to grab her and pin her too. Whoa. What am I saying? I'm spitting trash. See what a 2D girl has done to me. If you've ever watched 2.5 Dimensional Seduction, I think we can cut Okuruma some slack for falling in love with a 2D character. But yeah. She extracted all the dragon's power out of him, and I wish she'd extract the seeds out of my Excalibur too. At the Devil's Keep, Issei is still unable to make a pact with a human, and I think it's because everyone he meets look like guys who want to bust a nut in his behind. Just then, Issei's mom pulled in with 10,000 reasons why I keep my girls out of my mom's reach. Let me introduce to you the photo album. I don't know about you, but my mom would be called an archaeologist if I were an ancient artifact, because she takes pictures of me like I'm a rare gem. Soon after, Issei got his first contract after drinking a few bottles of water. Issei and the rest took down an AWOL demon, and some truth about Yuta being a survivor of a failed experiment by the church to produce someone who could wield an Excalibur. Not that Excalibur, I mean the actual sword. Next, we see Yuta in a fierce sparring match with an angel wielding the Excalibur. They've got history, and this fight seems a little more personal than the relationship I have with my Excalibur. And no, I'm talking about the wonderful sword I have hanging between my legs. Just when it looked like Yuta was about to use the angel's wings to sweep the floors of the battleground, the angel bailed, saying he's got a call. I didn't mention it out of jealousy before, but Issei was stuck in a heated battle between the president and Asia, trying to determine who will sleep next to him and his Excalibur for the night. This morning, he woke up to not just a pair of melons, my broskies. He woke up to 2 pairs of melons. That's a total number of 4 melons all up on him when he woke up. I wouldn't rise up, but I know someone who will. They just got up and left like they weren't fighting over him just last night. Bro was having the time of his life, mind clapping the girls that just left his room, but he was rudely interrupted by his left hand. Imagine being lost in your imagination, and your left hand cuts you off just when it was about to get better. His left hand houses the power of the Red Dragon. The Red Dragon says that a strange power is keeping it from sleeping, and it's most definitely not the president's. It says it's the power of the White Dragon. The White Dragon is an equally powerful dragon, and they've been on good terms. So somewhere in the future, Issei is gonna have to battle that. After school, the president explained how Yuta came to be. The original author, Pendragon Excalibur, was destroyed in battle a long time ago. The pieces were picked, alongside 7 kids, and 7 swords were made out of the pieces of the Excalibur. Yuta was part of the experiment. The experiment failed, and the chairman of the experiment exterminated the failed projects. The president had visitors, and they came bearing bad news. They went to another place to have their meeting, and because of the graphic content of this part, I have to reduce talking about it, but let me paint a picture. 4 girls, in their full glory, 3 pairs of sizable melons and 1 rice cake-chested girl, all seated together like a steam bath, discussing. All they discussed was that messengers from the church wanted to have a meeting with her. The messengers passed by Issei's house. One of them was Issei's childhood friend. Fast forward to the meeting, they explain that they are here to retrieve stolen Excaliburs from fallen angels. As they stood up to leave, they threw shades at Arya for becoming a devil. Issei was not having any of this, but they didn't let him have his moment. Just then, as the heat escalated, Yuta joined in, and now we have a sparring match. Issei and Yuta start a battle against Irina and Zenobia, but things don't go as planned. They end up losing pretty badly, but guess what? Issei had a rush of hormones and decided he wanted to feast his eyes on Irina's melons and peaches. He powers up to rip her clothes off, but before he could do it, Irina was warned. She dearly avoided his attacks, and he ended up ripping Kaneko and Asia's clothes. The Virgin got up and thanked them for blessing his eyes and got a sweet uppercut. On the other hand, Yuta's fight was intense. He lost to Zenobia wielding the Excalibur of Destruction. It sounds like something one of my guys wielded in between his legs. That thing was hella huge. The two exorcists leave the school grounds, leaving Issei and Yuuto feeling frustrated about their defeat. But before Irina and Zenobia take off, the president asks them about the identity of the fallen angel who stole the Excalibur swords. That's when they find out that the mastermind is none other than the fallen angel leader, Kokabiel. Back at the Occult Research Club, Yuto is really upset and storms out of the building, still frustrated by the loss to Zenobia. Watching him leave, Issei feels bad for his friend and decides to help Yuta achieve his goal of getting revenge on the Excalibur swords. Issei, using Koneko's help, drags Saji into his plan. Together, the three of them set out to find Irina and Zenobia, determined to make a difference. When they finally find the two exorcists on a quiet street, and they team up, the exorcists were broke and hungry. The person I've seen that cleared a plate as fast as this was Rengoku. They are ladies, so they couldn't shout "umai" out loud. But I trust if Sasha from AOT was alive, she would have screamed delicious at the top of her voice. The teamwork pays off, and they manage to get their hands on one of the Excalibur swords. Issei hands it over to Yuto, allowing him the chance to destroy it, fulfilling part of his revenge. Yuta is moved by Issei and Kaneko's willingness to support him. Later on, the president has a meeting, and it's another full-blown sightseeing scene. But this time, it's only one pair of huge sweet melons and one flat-chested bee. I didn't hear anything because I was too busy ogling. Sorry I can't show you. At home, Asia shows Issei her new dress. We can all tell that her motive here is to have a piece of Issei's meat. Before they could get anything done, Issei's client called him and he quickly dashed away to his only client. Later that night, everyone meets up. Issei, Yuta, and their new temporary allies, Irina and Zenobia, to put their plan into action. They're ready to destroy the remaining Excalibur swords and put an end to all the chaos they've caused. However, as they're gearing up, a mysterious young man shows up right next to one of Issei's clients. Who is this guy? What's he planning to do? The mystery deepens as the plot thickens. Issei and his friends kick off their mission to track down Fried and recover the remaining Excalibur fragments. After some searching, they find out that Fried is hiding out in an abandoned warehouse, one that used to be the lair of the stray devil, Visor. Without wasting any time, Yuta steps forward and challenges Fried to a one-on-one fight. Things heat up quickly, with swords clashing and energy sparks flying everywhere. But just as Yuta starts gaining the upper hand, Issei, Saji, and Koneko jump into the fray, giving Yuta a huge advantage in numbers. But hold up, it's not that easy. Right when it looks like they're about to take Fried down for good, an old man steps out of the shadows, introducing himself as Valper Galilei. Zenobia and Irina burst into the scene, cutting Fried's victory dance short. Realizing that things aren't going his way, Valper quickly suggests they should make a run for it. Fried agrees and uses a ninja-style flash bomb to make their way out of there. Yuta, Zenobia, and Irina immediately give chase as the president, Sona, Akeno, and Tsubaki show up just a little too late to join in the action. Left behind, Issei and Saji get caught red-handed by their respective masters, and they're both punished. Everyone went doggy position and a lot of back shots were given. Later, Asia welcomes everyone in a classic naked apron outfit. When the president sees this, she's not about to be outdone and changes into one herself. The further we go into this anime, the angrier and more jealous I get, because this guy was like a dusty rag on the street, but now, he's waking up to sweet melons and having 2 free chicks to clap on a daily basis, and this bastard is not paying bills. The next day, the president, Akeno, and Koneko set out to scan the city and track down Yuta, Zenobia, and Irina. Their search eventually leads them to the town's outskirts, where they find Irina severely injured and lying on the ground. Using Asia's healing abilities, they manage to patch her up, and Tsubaki takes Irina to the Citri residence for more care. Fried, however, shows up again, but this time he's waving around 4 Excalibur swords like a maniac, having stolen Irina's Excalibur Mimic to add to his collection. As if that wasn't enough, he introduces his boss, none other than Kokabiel, one of the high-ranking leaders of the Fallen Angels. He reveals his real reason for stealing the Excaliburs was to start another great war between the three factions because he's bored. He's clearly disappointed that the Archangel Michael only sent low-level exorcists like Irina and Zenobia to try and stop him. He decides to take aim at the Devils of Kuo Academy instead, hoping to draw out the powerful four Satans. As a show of power, Kokabile uses a small-scale attack as a distraction. Issei and his friends realize they're in serious trouble and rush back to school to gear up for what's going to be the fight of their lives. Meanwhile, inside Kuo Academy, Valper and Fried are shown inside a magic circle, performing some mysterious ritual. Yuta and Zenobia are watching from a distance. Sona and her team create a huge barrier around Kuo Academy. Meanwhile, the president and her team get ready to face Kokabile, Fried, and Valper. Everyone's tense, and I've got my popcorn ready, because I know somewhere in the episode, there'll be a lot of melon flashes that I won't share with you. It's been a while we named a Melanier. Who should we name the Melanier? Suggestions in the comment section, please. For those of you just joining us, the Melanier is the lady in the anime with the biggest melons. So, keep your eyes peeled for that. As soon as the fight begins, Kokabile doesn't waste time and summons several Cerberus demons. The famous three-headed dogs the legends say that are guarding the gates of hell? That's them. But the president's team isn't going down without a fight. With Zenovia's help, they manage to take down the Cerberus beasts one by one, sending them back to the pit of hell. Just as they think they're catching a break, Valper pops up and manages to combine all four Excalibur fragments into a single superpowered sword. And just to make things worse, Valper sets up a self-destruct magic circle that will go off in 20 minutes. Meanwhile, some mysterious guy is watching everything from the shadows. The president and Aquino then charge at Kokabile. Kokabile's power is on Dragon Ball level, and he easily overpowers them. While that chaos is happening, Yuto goes head-to-head with Valper, and finally learns the truth about the Holy Sword Project, the very thing that turned his life upside down. Fueled by rage and the support of his friends, both past and present, Yuto breaks through his limits and unlocks his balance breaker, the Sword of Betrayer, and with his new powers, Yuto teams up with Zenobia, who summons her mighty sword, the Excalibur of Destruction. The two of them fight side by side and manage to destroy the fused Excalibur, shattering it into pieces. Now Fried is out of the picture like a used-up toilet paper, and without his precious Excalibur, he's way worse than Superman when he's confronted with the Green Stone. Yuto is still fired up. He tries to take out Valper for everything he's done, but just as he's about to strike Valper into the next life, Kokabile steps in and lands the final blow, killing Valper himself. Okay, that's a little plot twist I did not expect at all. And why do I feel like he's entertaining himself watching them fight? He could end them easily if he wanted to. Kokabile reveals a shocking fact that Issei can transfer his powers to anyone he wants. He just tells Issei that Issei is a devil cheat code. Issei is now determined to step up and help. He decides to transfer his power to the president. This could be their big chance to turn things around. And now, do you understand why I said this guy is enjoying the fight from where he is seated? Issei is determined to help, so he channels his boosted power and transfers it all to the president. The president consumes the surge of energy and charges like an angry tigress towards Kokabile. She struck him with a power that would end any other simple fighter. But this is Kokabile we are talking about. It doesn't even scratch him. Seeing that the president didn't have much luck, Aquino steps in and launches her own lightning attack. But Kokabile, being as OP as he is, brushes it off easily like it was paper she threw at him. He then starts mocking the president, saying she's got a weird habit of gathering strange people, just like her brother, Surzex. This ticks off Issei, and most definitely, he wasn't about to let anyone bad talk the girl who gives him free melons everything. He can't just stand by and let Kokabile insult the president like that. Fueled by anger and his dumb dream of becoming a harem king, I'm still pissed this virgin has two unbelievably sweet-looking chicks fighting for his meat. But let's go on. Issei steps up and decides to fight Kokabile himself. Kaneko, Yuto, and Zenobia jump in too, trying to buy Issei some time to power up. But no matter what combo attacks they use, Kokabile kept yawning and dusting their dry attacks. Kokabile decides to drop a major news that during the Great War long ago, both God and the original four Satans died by his hands. Everyone's jaws hit the floor like the meteor that killed the dinosaurs, especially Asia and Zenobia, who can't believe what they're hearing. Instead of falling into despair, Issei shouts that he doesn't care because he's gonna keep fighting for his dream. His determination fires everyone up, and they get back into the fight, ready to give it their all. Just when it seems like the battle is about to reach its peak, the barrier around the school shatters, and a new figure descends from the sky with an aura that matches that of Lord Beerus from Dragon Ball Super. It's none other than the White Dragon Emperor, Albion. Albion effortlessly takes down Kokabule, tearing off his wings like it's nothing. He even negates the self-destruct spell that was going to blow up the whole school. Albion then grabs Kokabule and Freed, dragging them away like I must do every time I take my girl to the grocery store. The battle finally ends, and everyone breathes a sigh of relief. Sona and her team get to work fixing up the school, patching up the damage. Meanwhile, Yuto, having confronted his past and come out stronger, pledges his loyalty to the president once more. He's determined to serve her with the rest of the team, putting all his bitterness behind him. The next day, things start looking normal again. Well, as normal as they can be at QO Academy. Issei and Asia are hanging out when suddenly, Zenobia strolls into the Occult Research Club, wearing a QO Academy uniform. She explains that after finding out about God's death, she decided to reincarnate as a devil, and has now become the president's new knight. LOL guys, in Drake's voice, she just flipped the switch, flip-flop. She even apologizes to Asia for her harsh words before, showing she's already starting to change. Later, we see Issei chilling and playing a video game with one of his clients. With the way this anime played out, I won't mind having a devil keep me company once in a while.
Everything seems calm until the client casually reveals that he's Azazel, the governor of the fallen angels. Issei's face is priceless. I was like, WAA, that was so cool. He's been hanging it with someone who could end him in the blink of an eye.
The shocking reveal left our very virgin hero with his mouth hanging open like he just caught someone clapping the president's cheeks. Or imagine if he walked in on Asia giving someone the hawk tuah. Okay, we've laughed enough, let's head back to business. Shaking off his surprise, Issei heads back to the Occult Research Club and spills the beans to the president and the rest of the gang. Naturally, the president isn't too thrilled. It's not every day your boyfriend is buddy-buddy with a fallen angel leader, after all. The next day, things get back to normal. The Occult Research Club gets stuck with pool cleaning duty. While they're scrubbing and splashing around, Issei's dragon arm starts acting up again. It's glowing and thrumming like a power-up scene from Dragon Ball Super. Issei calmly tells it to calm the F out, the same way I've had to tell my own Excalibur to calm down, because of all the melon display in this anime. And like my Excalibur, the arm doesn't listen, so he must visit Akino to help calm down the dragon's power. After a lot of scrubbing, the club finally finishes cleaning and fills up the pool, but instead of calling it a day, they all decide to go for a swim. Akino, being the sweet delicious goddess she is, tries to seduce Issei, leaning in all too close. You see that thing I said about my Excalibur rising and not listening to me? It's doing it again? If you're a lady and you're watching, would you be offended if I said I'd like to hit? Tell me in the comment section. The president was not about to let Akano steal the show. She also jumps in and insists that Issei put sunscreen on her back. It quickly turns into a full-on battle of beauty, with Issei caught in the middle. Instead of Issei to man up, he begins to panic and makes a run for it and bumps into Zenobia. Out of nowhere, she calmly asks if he'd like to have a baby with her. Issei's eyes go wide. Before Issei can process it, the president and the other girls show up like glaring daggers. Looks like Zenobia's bold move didn't go unnoticed. Wait, there's another guy, Yuta. Why is no one dying for him? Later, back at the Occult Research Club, things take a serious turn. Surzex, the big shot Devil King and the president's older brother, drops by for a surprise visit. With him is Grafia, his super strong and super serious wife. They're here for two reasons: to see the president's class for an observation day, and to scope out the school as a potential meeting spot for the three supernatural factions. Surzex is smiling from ear to ear as he agrees to spend the night at Issei's place. The next morning, the president leaves early to guide Surzex and Grafia, while Asia heads off to visit Zenovia's new apartment. This leaves Issei walking to school all alone, feeling like a normal student for once. But of course, that doesn't last long. On his way, he encounters a strange young man with a confident smirk. Introducing himself as Vali, the White Dragon Emperor, he makes Issei's jaw drop for the second time in just 2 days. Issei is staring at his new rival. It's like Naruto staring right at his #1 enemy. Vali would be like Sasuke, showing up just to remind the hero that things are about to get serious. Issei can't believe his luck. First Azazel, now Vali. It's like every strong fighter in the world suddenly decided to say hello. Things are definitely heating up at Kyo Academy, and it looks like the next showdown will be a real clash of the titans. Plus the fact that the dragon is willing to transform most of Issei's body to dragon parts. Valley confidently approaches Issei, but before he can get too close, Yuta and Zenobia step in to block his way. Valley just sighs and shakes his head, saying that they couldn't even handle Kokabiel. What makes them think you can take him on? He's got an aura just like my girl, when I mess up the room right after she puts it in order, just in the name of looking for my underwear. Ignoring them, he looks at Issei and casually asks, what rank does he think he is at? Issei was looking confused. He shrugs awkwardly. Valley was barely holding back a chuckle as he says, Issei is somewhere in the 4-digit range in terms of strength because his balance breaker isn't fully developed yet. He then turns to the president and tells her to train Issei properly before leaving like he's got better things to do. After the tense encounter, Issei ends up in the school's infirmary to rest. Lying down, he asks Didreg, the dragon living inside him, about his connection with Albion, the White Dragon Emperor. Dreg then goes into a long, ancient history lesson about the heavenly dragons and how they ended up fighting each other endlessly, only to get sealed away. Listening to the dragon story, Issei feels like he's trapped in a boring class lecture, wishing he had a remote control to fast forward through all the exposition. My superpower would have come up, I would have slept off in the middle and woke to say, oh, okay, and go right back to sleep. Later, when Issei returns to his classroom, things quickly turn chaotic again, thanks to Zenovia's lack of sense, because the way the thing is going, we can't call it common sense, because it's not common. She blurts out something completely inappropriate, making Issei panic and run out of the room like he's being chased by an angry mob. There's always a dumb character, but no one as dumb as Yoshiko from Aho Girl. Trying to shake off the embarrassment, Issei ends up spotting the president and Akeno chatting with Sona and Tsubaki. They're all serious, talking about their run-in with Vali and worrying about the upcoming class observation day. On the day of the class observation, everything is going normally until the afternoon. After class, Issei, the president, and Akeno hear students buzzing about someone dressed up like a character from a magical girl show. Curious, they head to the gym, and to their shock, find Seraphal Leviathan, Sona's older sister, and one of the current Satans. She's in full cosplay mode, posing and acting like a magical girl straight out of Sailor Moon. Issei's jaw drops. Everyone is bewildered. Even the president can't hide her embarrassment as Seraphal prances around, throwing peace signs and winking at the stunned students. Meanwhile, back at the Hyudu residence, Issei's father, the president's father, and Surzex are lounging around, happily watching the videos they took during the class observation. They're laughing and commenting like they're watching a family sitcom from Z-World. Mother used to make me watch those things. I can never think of Indians normally ever again. The president's face turns bright red as she sees them replaying every little embarrassing moment, especially when Surzex, her brother, teases her about how she was blushing around Issei. She storms out, mortified. Issei quickly follows her, and they end up alone, sharing a sweet, intimate moment. But because the plot won't let this boy clap only one girl at a time, Asia walks in at the worst possible time and screams out saying, "The president is not being fair." She pouts, glaring at the president like she's been caught stealing snacks from the jar. If the jar is Issei's sacks, then it's okay. The president, without missing a beat, calmly replies that she learned from Akeno that being bold in love is key. Asia is most definitely not going to back down. She declares that if that's the case, before things can escalate, Surzex steps in like an overprotective dad and tells them to cut it out. He then surprises everyone by giving the president permission to unseal her other bishop, leaving everyone wondering what new power the president is about to bring into play. The president and her servants are standing in front of a mysterious sealed classroom in the old school building. The atmosphere feels tense. As they unseal the door, a loud scream echoes through the hallway. Akeno, with a mischievous grin, removes the coffin to reveal a boy wearing a girl's school uniform. Issei is utterly confused, scratching his head. The president calmly introduces the boy as Gasper Vladi, a half-vampire with a sacred gear called Forbidden Baylor View. Issei barely has time to process this before Gasper, nervous and flustered, accidentally freezes time the moment Icy tries to touch him. The president explains that Gasper's sacred gear is so powerful and unstable that they had to seal him away, because he couldn't control it. But with no time to waste, the president, Akeno, and Yudo leave to help with preparations for the upcoming meeting of the three factions. It sounds serious, but for Issei, that just means more chaos is coming. Meanwhile, Issei, Koneko, Asia, and Zenobia are left to train Gasper. Training someone who can stop time is the hardest thing one can do. During the training session, Azazel shows up out of nowhere. He casually strolls into the schoolyard, offering tips on how to better control Gasper's sacred gear, like it's no big deal. Azazel's laid-back attitude helps, and after giving some solid advice, he leaves, leaving the group to continue. Later, Issei and the others take Gasper to the gymnasium, but as expected, Gasper's nerves get the better of him, and he tries to hide away from everyone again. Issei, being the big brother figure, manages to pull Gasper aside for a heart-to-heart chat. Gasper opens, expressing how scared he is of his own powers. Issei reassures him, saying that he survived fighting the fallen angels and still dreams about being a harem king. He's got nothing to worry about. Yuto, Koneko, Asia, and Zenobia soon join them, making Gasper feel more at ease. They're a team, and they won't let him go through it alone. The next day, Issei and Asia meet up with the president and Akeno. The president tells Issei to meet Akeno at her place later. Issei, slightly flustered, heads to the shrine where Akeno lives. When he arrives, Akeno greets him in her traditional Miko outfit, the sight of which almost makes Issei's nose bleed. He's got to keep his focus, but who is he to hold back from his testosterones? But before things can get any more awkward, a new figure appears. He radiates pure energy and authority, instantly capturing everyone's attention. He introduces himself as Michael, the leader of the angels. Issei's eyes widened in shock. My eyes didn't just widen, my mind blew to 1,000 tiny pieces. Oh, I heard of Michael, but this aura is 10 over 10. It seems like this meeting is about to escalate into something huge. Issei stands frozen, realizing that his crazy life just keeps getting crazier. Still can't believe this dustbin's life went from 0 to 1,000. Issei meets the big boss of the angels, Archangel Michael. Michael doesn't waste much time and hands him the holy sword, Ascalon. Without much ceremony, Issei quickly fuses the sword with his boosted gear, like he's combining Zords in a Power Ranger to form a Megazord. After the sword merge session, Michael bids farewell, needing to attend some heavenly business. Once Michael is gone, Issei ends up in a heart-to-heart chat with Akeno. She opens about her past, and Issei listens, which makes their bond even stronger. They get all cozy, and Akeno offers Issei a lap pillow. But just as Issei is starting to enjoy his sweet lap time, the president storms in like an angry Dragon Ball character and drags him away, shooting fiery looks. They head back to school, where Issei helps Gasper with his training. Gasper shows massive improvement with his powers, and Issei is like a proud big brother watching his sibling land a chick he could never land at that age. Later that night, Issei is in his room thinking about Akeno's situation. He feels guilty for poking around about her past without being more sensitive. Just as he's lost in thought, there's a knock at his door. In walks the president, followed by Akeno. The president mentions that she'll be staying over since their meeting ran late, leaving Issei speechless. As they chat, Akeno goes back to her usual teasing self, making Issei realize she's doing better now. The president then brings up how Issei told Akeno he liked her for who she is, no matter her past. This leads to a hilarious argument over who can comfort Issei more, with every line, "I just get pissed off more than this useless dude, nails more chicks than I do, or likely more than I ever would in this life." And just when things couldn't get crazier, Asia walks in. She sees the other two fighting over Issei. The next morning, Issei wakes up feeling something heavy on him. He glances around and, surprise, surprise, sees the president, Akeno, and Asia all snuggled up to him. And of course, he wakes up to yet another set of sweet melons. The next day is the big conference day. The president and her crew head to the meeting room, leaving Koneko and Gasper back at the club room. The meeting has a star-studded cast: Azazel and Vali for the fallen angels, Michael repping the angels, and Surzex and Seraphal on behalf of the devils. It's like a supernatural version of the Avengers assembling. As they start the talks, a shady group of people sneak up to where Gasper and Koneko are keeping watch at the club room. Looks like things are about to get dicey for our heroes. Hope someone brought popcorn because it seems like this meeting is about to be interrupted by some uninvited guests. The meeting between the leaders of the three factions is still going on, and Azazel turns to Issei and Vali, asking for their thoughts on the peace treaty. Issei, being Issei, takes this as an opportunity to throw a curveball and asks Michael why Asia was kicked out of the church in the first place. Michael explains the chaos going on in heaven at the time. Asia and Zenobia listen to all this and then smile, saying they're much happier with their new lives. But the mood shifts when Azazel casually brings up the fact that one of his own guys was the one who killed Asia. Issei's face turns redder than a tomato, and the room feels like it's on the verge of a meltdown, like when Natsu from Fairy Tail gets ready to burn everything down. Just as the tension reaches its peak, the entire place suddenly freezes over. Turns out Gasper, the little vampire, has been kidnapped. Chaos erupts like a hot lava monster as a bunch of magicians suddenly show up and start attacking the meeting. The president decides she's going to save Gasper herself, but Issei quickly volunteers to tag along. Meanwhile, Valley steps outside to deal with the magicians, wiping them out like Saitama, swatting away mosquitoes in one punch man. The president and Issei use the president's unused rook piece to teleport to the old school building. Just before they leave, Azazel tosses Issei 2 bracelets, saying they'll help control his and Gasper's sacred gears. Meanwhile, a new villainess shows up, Kateria Leviathan. She charges in, attacking the leaders right after Issei and the president leave. Azazel isn't fazed though, and after throwing some insults her way, a big fight breaks out. Back at the battlefield, Yuta, Zenobia, and Irina decide to join in the action against the magicians. Graphia, who's always calm and collected, tries to figure out the magic circle the enemies are using. As for the president and Issei, they finally make it to the room where Gasper and Koneko are being held. Gasper looks terrified, but Issei has a plan. He lets Gasper drink some of his blood, which boosts Gasper's power, allowing him to gain control over his abilities. Issei then uses his infamous dress break move to take out the enemy mage's clothes, because what's a pervert gonna do except for perverse things? After making sure Gasper's okay, Issei hands him one of the bracelets Azazel gave him. Now with Gasper powered up and his abilities in check, the team is ready to jump back into the fray. Issei and his friends head out, determined to save the day and show off a little while they're at it. The battle between the magicians and the 3 factions is getting wild. Gasper, stepping up big time, smashes the transportation circle the magicians were using, cutting off their escape route. Meanwhile, Azazel faces off against Kateria and defeats her using his artificial sacred gear, the Downfall Dragon Spear. But just when things seem to settle, Valley suddenly turns on Azazel. Yup, the guy reveals himself as the traitor and even calls Issei his rival. Valley's idea of rivalry, though, is messed up. He talks about killing Issei's parents just to push him into becoming an Avenger. Issei, hearing that, sees red and jumps straight into his balance breaker mode. But even then, Valley is too strong, and Issei can't keep up. To turn the tide, Issei makes a risky move by taking in the power of Valley's divine dividing into his own boosted gear. Issei's determination spikes, like when Goku hears someone stronger than him. His energy surges, and he manages to land a solid hit on Valley, catching him off guard. Just as Valley prepares to launch a serious counterattack, a new face named Biku shows up, interrupting the fight. He convinces Valley to retreat, and the two vanish, leaving Issei feeling a mix of victory and frustration. After the fight, Issei catches up with Michael and asks if it's okay for Asia and Zenobia to still pray to God. Michael agrees, and Azazel leaves the scene with his group. A few days later, Azazel surprises everyone by showing up at the Occult Research Club. Turns out, he's the new club advisor. Apparently, Surzex requested this so Azazel could help Issei, Yuto, and Gasper get the hang of their sacred gears. But that's not all. He drops another bombshell. Surzex has also decided that the girls of the president's group will move into the Hyudu residence. When the girls move in, the house gets packed fast. The president, not wanting to miss a beat, decides to ask her brother for a favor. She asks him for a house renovation. I can't wait to find out if Issei actually gets a harem as a powerful hero or just gets more girls to simp for him. Can you? Let us know in the comments below if you want next season's recap. Thank you for watching, and do not forget to hit that like and subscribe for more of the best anime content on YouTube.